Greetings, Gus T Renegade in for another program of the C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy, hopefully to share constructive information about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Thank you everyone for tuning into the broadcast. Quick turnaround, right back, not even, I guess, just about 12 hours done from having Tim Wise on the program, right back at it. Thank you all for supporting the program. Please check the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. Once again, racism-notes.blogspot.com. I don't know, folks, if they caught the program in November when Dr. Robert L. Williams was on the show. He is the author of Racial Scripting. It's racism learned at an early age through racial scripting. He was on the program in November, shared solid information with us about racism. In his book, lots of footnotes, excellent source of information. One of the footnotes that caught my eye immediately was a book titled Somebody's Trying to Kill You. Tracked it down and was just, I really would love to have this person come on the program to talk about his book. Contact the individual, and he actually has written more than one book about racism, white supremacy. When I spoke with him on the phone, he said that's what one of my other books is about, more specifically about the global system of white supremacy. I can tell you that is a rarity that I ever contact anyone about being on the program, and their response is, my work is about the global system of white supremacy. Pleasure to have him on the program. I think we should be able to learn a lot from our guest today, Dr. Harry Davidson. Are you with us, Dr. Davidson?
Yes, I am. How are you, sir?
I am well, sir. Thank you so much for spending some of your Friday morning with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and we have a storm brewing, snowstorm, so hopefully that'll hold up. Long enough for me to get some things done today, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Wow, please stay safe in the weather. Wow, that's I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so I don't have to deal, thankfully, with the big snowstorms too often.
Yes.
For our listeners who may not have read your work, might not be familiar with you, could you just give them a little bit of background information so they have a better idea of who Dr. Davidson is?
Basically, my training is as a clinical and community psychologist. My degree is from California School of Professional Psychology, Los Angeles, California. But I felt that, particularly in dealing with black people, with my people, that not only did I need to understand a lot about the human mind and human condition from a psychological standpoint, but I also needed to understand what I see for black people as an underlying factor, a predominant factor, and that being white supremacy, racism, white supremacy. So I've authored several books. The most popular one is Somebody's Trying to Kill You, The Psychodynamics of White Racism and Black Pathology. And then I followed that with a book called Somebody's Trying to Kill You, The Economics of Death. Another book that I did was The Ultimate Conspiracy, an Assault on Democracy, Reason, and Religion. Man's Fall from God, The Role of Society's Skull and Bones. My most recent book is God Save America, an Assault on Democracy, Reason, and Religion. That's basically who I am.
Wow.
But my concern being to help people understand, that what we might, some people refer to as, instead of post-traumatic stress syndrome, we talk about post-slavery syndrome for black people and people of color, people who have experienced oppression, enslavement, discrimination, prejudice, and all of those conditions.
Wow. Yeah, very, very fitting, Dr. Joy DeGruy-Leary, Dr. Joy DeGruy-Leary. She was on the program to talk about her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, at the beginning of the month.
Yes.
So, nice bookend for January. I've already told us, you are a black male, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. This program, the C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. The definition that I use for both racism and white supremacy is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Yes.
You said yes. Do you feel that's an accurate?
I think that's extremely accurate.
Okay.
I would refer you to the most profound work in that particular area is the work of Frances Cress Welsing and the ISIS papers. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Dr.
She deals in depth. She's a psychiatrist. Formerly, she was at Howard University. They didn't particularly like her views.
Historically black college. Why would they have a problem with her views on racism, white supremacy at a historically black college?
Because many of our so-called historically black colleges are supported economically, financially by major white corporations. And they have to be very careful about what they do and what they say. Are you fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It would be similar to Arsenio Hall a few years back, thinking that he could have Minister Louis Farrakhan on his program and stay on the air. You follow me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, it takes, I was talking to one of my brothers who I respect highly, Dr. Ashanti, who's written a book called The Psychotechnology of Brainwashing. Okay? And I would recommend that you also at some point have him on your program, because he also deals in depth with white supremacy and racism. But, referring back to Dr. Welsing, Dr. Welsing was basically using the Europeans' whole notion of the Rorschach in terms of interpreting symbolism in our society, and how that symbolism is in fact a reflection of the white supremacy that's always there. Most people get very confused, extremely confused. And not only confused, but tricked into thinking that when we talk about racism, we're talking about how you get along with your next door neighbor who's white, or how you get along with that white person you work with. That's the reason why I prefer to a system that is dominated and controlled by white supremacy. It's more important to me than how I might get along with my white neighbor. I also point out when I talk to white people that they were indeed the first slaves in America, and that the word slave, Slav, is a European, Central European term that had to do with white folks enslaving other white people. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
So white people came here, they call them indentured servants, but they were slaves too. For that is that white female slaves were bred with black male slaves to produce slaves. We give the slave master far too much credit when we think that he is responsible for producing all these light-skinned black people. You know what I mean? And all these black people that run around claiming that they have some Indian in them. They don't understand how they got the Indian in them, because the Indians were enslaved, the whites were enslaved, and then the African was enslaved, and all of these folk were on the plantation together. Plantation master didn't let the Indians go, or the white people go, the white slaves go and the Indian slaves go, because the African slaves came on the scene. So there's overlap there that would account for all the racial mixing that goes on in our society.
Fascinating, fascinating. Again, Dr. Harry Davidson, clinical psychologist and author. I guess I want to make sure I'm checking. Would it also be accurate to say that Dr. Harry Davidson is a victim of racism, white supremacy?
All my life.
Oh. Okay. Just
and I decided that I was going to do my PhD, and my PhD centered around racism. The name of my PhD dissertation, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
My PhD dissertation was psychodynamics of white race, psychological characteristics, I'm getting this straight now,
Okay.
Black high school students, a theoretical and empirical examination of interdisciplinary thought. But the basis for my thesis was that racism was indeed a factor that was influencing what was happening to our kids educationally. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And perhaps I was surprised when the school, the university, my professors, etc., frowned on that. Are you following? They didn't want me to pursue that. Had I been talking about the sexual behaviors of black females or something of that nature, then it would have been far more acceptable. But for me to dare begin to look into the essence of white supremacy, racism, was something that they weren't that keen on. Let me say that. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it became more interesting. It was easier for me to get into that setting, to get into a PhD program, than to get out. You know, and I had a Jewish professor who was in charge of, when your proposals were accepted or not accepted or rejected. And my proposal was one of the first to get in, but it was one of the last to be accepted. And ironically, this was a Jewish professor who did not want me to pursue the area that I was pursuing, and said that before I could go further with my dissertation, I had to prove that, in fact, racism existed.
Wow.
But everywhere I've gone, I've been confronted with racism, which is probably, the good news is that God has been good to me, and that ultimately what I was forced to do was to step out on my own and establish my own private practice, because whether I was working for the University of Missouri, Kansas City, or Western Missouri Mental Health Center, or AT&T Technology, and go on down the line. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
I was always a victim of white supremacy. Are you following? Because I did not play the kind of games that many black people, or may I say Negroes, and I make an exception. I know the difference between Negroes and black people. And I can use the N-word too. I know what an N-word is, all right?
Yes, sir.
A trifling person has no desire, no goal, no ambition. A Negro is basically a highly, conservative individual who really doesn't want to rock the boat. Are you following? Who doesn't want to put his business in jeopardy.
Okay.
Who's just bought that mega church.
Wow.
That has a large mortgage. He is not going to be prone to stand up against the white supremacy. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So those conservative people of color, I don't think that we can really call them black, because black is a political term that was born out of the struggles of the 60s and the 70s, when black people didn't want to be called black. The masses of black people did not want to be called black, and it was so-called militant radical groups, Black Panthers, what they called the Black Muslims, other groups that were willing to forge ahead despite the opposition that was being met. Are you following? And it was much later that we accepted the term black. We wanted to be called Negroes. For a while, we wanted to be called colored. But what basically has happened to us is because of the dominance and because we live under white supremacy domination, everything in a society that is basically controlled and dictated by white thought, white consciousness, is controlled by white folk. And then if you go into Africa, for example, you'll find the same kinds of things happening.
Wow.
And you might not see a white person, but behind the scene, white supremacy tends to pull the strings for the puppets.
Wow.
Look at the situation in Haiti today. And that same thing happening, and although they talk about Papa Doc and the corruption of Haitian leadership, they don't talk about the fact that the United States was contributing heavily to the demise of Haiti. You know?
Yes, sir.
I've written an article, and I say the real natural disaster occurred long before the earthquake. So the natural disaster was not natural, it was man-made, because first of all, Haiti had to pay, I think, $15 billion or something back in that day for its independence and its freedom. Had to pay that to the French. And then Haiti, like many African countries, had to borrow money from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and had to pay that money back to America and to the European countries with interest, converting Haitian money to U.S. dollars, and not having enough money after they pay the debt to sustain the population, let alone the infrastructure. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the kind of white supremacy domination that I'm talking about, not how you get along with your neighbor. Most people want to talk about race relations. Race relations has nothing to do with racism, and certainly not white supremacy domination. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A slave, the slave, so the slave got along beautifully with the slave master. You know what I mean? That's race relations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So major problem being that we have never had the kind of economic base, and that's the economics of death. Somebody's trying to kill you, the economics of death. That we never had the kind of economic base that would allow us to be a free people. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And we always put the horse, how's it go, the cart before the horse.
Right, right. Well,
the horse before the
cart. The horse before the cart, yeah.
Yeah, the cart before the horse. You know, and even the Obama administration that's talking about mentoring kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And getting it and educating kids, and black men accepting responsibility for their families, but there are no jobs. Are you fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can have all the education. We right today we have black people walking around with college educations, master's degrees, PhDs. Okay,
yes, sir.
who can't find employment because we have no economic base, we have no economic structure. Which and I recently traveled in South Africa, where the reverse is true. South Africa gained its independence and took power and took control over the government. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
And they have a country that they can now develop. Not to say that they don't have problems, because they do have problems. Because even there, the wealth of the country is controlled by whites.
Wow. Again, this is...
What I'm saying is, until we can, you know, we love to ride in the fancy cars, BMWs. It used to be the Cadillac. But we don't produce any.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We marvel at the fact that Michael Jordan, you know, has the tennis shoes. What do you call them? Yes,
sir. Yes, sir.
Well, where is the plants? Where are the plants?
Wow.
Why can't he step forward and say and demand that those shoes be produced in the black community, which would create jobs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The stimulus program. You gave the money to the bank. Why didn't you give the money to the people who were losing their homes? Because if you don't have good credit, the bank is still not going to loan you any money. Huh? So sometimes we get tricked in believing that things are changing, and they're not really changing at all, because we live in a capitalistic country where money controls, the Benjamins control everything that goes on within that system.
Yes, sir.
But we expect that somehow young black people be good, and they should be good for the sake of being good. Okay? I don't approve of it, and I'm not endorsing either drug sales, and I don't necessarily endorse some of the hip-hop music that's out there, but at least these are young people who have a product that they are becoming entrepreneurs. Wrong?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's lacked in past generations. We have not had that. Therefore, the progress that we have been able to make is extremely limited, and will continue to be extremely limited. Doesn't make any difference who's in the White House. Because when it comes right down to it, presidents and congressmen and senators and who are controlled by white supremacy domination and controlled by those people who have wealth and power.
Wow. Again, our guest on today's program, Dr. Harry Davidson, clinical psychologist and author. I wanted to just highlight a few things that you talked about there. It seemed like you were saying repeatedly confusion, non-white people being confused about racism, white supremacy, either because there's a non-white person in the White House or confused because they get along very well with their white neighbor or white coworker. Do you think, it's accurate to say that non-white people are very confused about the system of racism, white supremacy, and what to do to replace that system with a system of justice?
Name of one of my books is The Psychodynamics of White Racism and Black Pathology. White racism is an illness. It's a mental illness, okay? It's a distorted perception that you think that because of the color of your skin, you're superior. That's a delusion. That's distortion. So that's an illness, a mental illness. But that then, and let me add, that there are a lot of black Negroes are counterfeit black folk. We sometimes refer to them as counterfeit black folk.
Yes, sir.
Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Who get confused. What was the point that I was making?
The confusion of non-white people about white supremacy.
Oh, yes. Get confused into some semblance of truly being free and what have you, and a loss of identity. Oh, the point I wanted to make is that they believe, because they haven't seen it being any different, they believe that white people are supposed to be in charge, that all the institutions are supposed to be controlled by white people. Are you following?
Sure.
That my friend who's here from South Africa asked me, don't you have any black people who can read the news on television? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
So we have all the commentators and the Bill O'Reillys and all the people who are making all of these statements, and we have nobody to counter that because we do not have a black voice, and those Negroes that end up representing us simply reflect what the white massa, even today, is putting into their head. Mm-hmm. They don't challenge it because they can't challenge it because they won't be there long and they will be replaced.
Wow. Would it be accurate, even the black people and or Negroes, would it be accurate to say that they too are victims of white supremacy and still subject to white people?
Yes, they are ill.
Okay.
Mentally ill.
Okay. Wow.
White supremacy has made them crazy. Mm-hmm. White supremacy causes them to lose their identity, to not have a sense of power, a self-esteem, of worthiness, or worth, or value. So it has to be an illness that keeps us from doing the kinds of things that are in our best interest.
Mm.
And coming together, my friend said, in South Africa, we all came together and stood up as one. That's at this point, it is not going to happen in America, where white supremacy rules more so than anywhere else in the world. Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
even Frantz Fanon, Black Skin, White Mask, talks about the language of the oppressor. We speak the oppressor's language. Okay? Therefore, the thoughts that we have are those of our oppressor. Okay? When we lost our language, we lost our minds, we lost our memory, because you cannot have memory without language. Okay? If you don't have language, you don't have memory. Yes. You have to have the symbols that interpret past experiences. Mm-hmm. So the slave master knew exactly what he was doing when he robbed us of our language, but because we don't have that collective language, then we don't have a collective memory of who we were. We don't have a memory of being the people who built the pyramid of ancient Kemet. Okay, we don't have a memory of the mystery systems. Okay.
Yes, sir.
We don't have a memory of our true religions. Okay, and then we then espouse ridiculous stuff like, don't support the Haitians because they practice voodoo. Okay? But we don't know what voodoo is. We don't know that voodoo was a philosophy and a religion. And we don't know that, yes, voodoo can be used for evil, but was primarily the early origins of what we now refer to as holistic health. And those herbs, those Haitians or either the Louisiana women or wherever they might be, those herbs and those witches' brews that they concoct are in fact serve medicinal purposes in our ancient history. Okay?
Wow.
So it's not. So basically, what we know is what white supremacy has allowed us to know. We know more about white institutions, white control, white language, white religion than we know about the essence of who we are as a people. Okay? And we do not have the institutions to turn that around.
Wow.
We were talking in Kansas City, they talked about African-centered schools. And we pushed for African-centered schools. And then when we really put our heads together and thought about it, we said, well, who's going to teach them? We all trained the teachers. Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
So with the exception of a few people who have bothered to educate themselves by reading, reading what that's that they're not supposed to be reading, okay? Like somebody's trying to kill you. Then we have a very uneducated people who see themselves as coming from as we enter Negro History Month. You have a very uneducated population that knows a lot about our slave history and very little about our true history as the original people and the people who originated civilization. We see ourselves as coming from a primitive background. Some of us, they say, well, tell me about Africa, because they're traveling in Africa and they want to know about the animals running down the street and all kind of ridiculous things coming out of supposedly educated people's mouths. Huh?
I said, yes, sir. Wow.
Somebody's trying to kill you. Most of the books that I sell, Boo, I have many, many requests, and they're coming out of prisons. So that men who are incarcerated, who are forced into being still, as still as you can be, and still protect yourself behind those walls, they thank me for my book, particularly Somebody's Trying to Kill You, but also The Ultimate Conspiracy and God Save America. And they say that they're now using them to conduct discussions behind prison walls. Huh?
Oh, I was just listening attentively. I'm sorry.
So that's. You have another question?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Quite a few, actually. I believe some of the folks have even called in to ask questions as well. So hopefully everybody can get some questions in. I wanted to ask, because you were talking about symbolism, and particularly in Somebody's Trying to Kill You, you talk about the power that images and symbols have on the psyche of black people, victims of white supremacy. And one of the biggest symbols that I see, Christianity, white images of Jesus, just the way that the Christian religion has been used to harm and condition non-white people. Can you talk about that and the impact that it has on black people?
Are you sure you want to go there?
Oh, we got to.
That is the one thing that will hurry up and get you in trouble. Are you? we were doing the program locally last week, and we were talking about Haiti. Well, Haiti's population, I think, is 80-some-odd% Catholic. 16% Protestant, and then other folk who actually practice the religion of voodoo. But underlying that, as in a lot of other African countries, is that people practice Christianity, but they also practice their traditional religion at the same time, simultaneously. But that religion, Christianity, and the image of Jesus has gotten us, because if you say Jesus is God, and the image that you have in your mind is the image of this white man with blue eyes and blonde hair, who are you worshiping? Who are you really worshiping? And that's the image I used to ask the audiences to name, close their eyes and visualize, famous people who had power. Well, I guess we can change the one about the president now. But invariably, they would come up with this image of the white God, of Jesus. But they could not identify with that, okay, but they saw him as being white. Either that, or they will tell you, they will go into denial, and they'll tell you he had no color. Huh?
Wow.
Well, wait a minute now, that's getting a little out there. I'm a psychologist. And you telling me that there was a colorless man that was walking the planet, and that doesn't make sense. But even though the evidence would suggest that Jesus himself was a black person, that the first Christians were in fact black people, that there was a religion before Christ that was practiced by a spiritual people. They weren't religious. They were a spiritual people, and these people were black. Okay? And so that whole controlling force of religion, that is the one that even the most educated of us do not want to tackle. Because Mama was a Christian, Grandma was a Christian, and we don't even want to tackle that. We will not, I just don't see us as changing that belief, that in fact Jesus was white, so therefore God is white, and that's the ultimate power that exists for us as a people. We just do not, we hold on to that one, okay? And that's the most powerful one that we do not even want to discuss openly.
Wow. I was talking with Mr. Tim Wise, admitted white supremacist, yesterday, and I was talking about one of the numerous ways that I see this play out is that non-white people, black people, have been conditioned to see white people in figures, to see white people as the source of salvation, literally and figuratively. And I was telling him this plays out whether we're Sunday morning in the church pew or whether we're watching 60 Minutes and seeing who's going in to rescue the folks from Hurricane Katrina or the earthquake in Haiti, or even white people doing anti-racist work who come in to save the day and say, yes, there is racism. Dr. Harry Davidson is not crazy. There is racism. He's absolutely right. And it still has the same dynamic in the way that it impacts non-white people. I was just going to get your thoughts, but we seem to be in agreement there. Do you think that's...
what do you call it, the anti-racism people?
Yes, the white person.
And I was watching a program, as a matter of fact, yesterday that was on C.O.W.S. With the anti-racist people.
Who was on? Do you remember?
The leadership was white.
Wow.
The leadership was white.
Okay.
But not that they're probably good white people, but they're still white. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
I'm like, you're the anti-racism people, but your leadership is white. Are you following? So those things are just, they baffle me. They baffle me as a thinking man.
For our listeners,
as a psychologist, but somebody who's capable of thought. Okay.
For our listeners who might be a little confused, why does that trouble you that the leadership of the anti-racist movement is filled with white people?
Because that's racist. Because that is racist. You see, we think about racism, and we think about white people hanging black people to trees, up in trees.
Right.
Or burning crosses, or doing the more obvious kinds of things. It's the subtle things that really control us. The essence of white supremacy domination has to do more with the subtle things. The kind of books that our kids are introduced to in schools. Okay? In Kansas City, we have the suburban areas where the police who control the white areas, you don't see black police controlling white areas. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
But you see white police, predominantly white police controlling black areas. Okay? And we think there's something good about the fact that our kids are going to black schools and the teachers are white and the principal is white. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
So we're still very much controlled. Like my friend says, the news. I'm so tired of seeing so many white people But we see that as being normal. We don't question that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't question that, okay? We see it as being normal that this car is manufactured by white people, or now, Chinese and who else is producing cars? Other people are producing cars. Huh?
I said not me.
Japanese. now, when you show me a car that's manufactured by a black company, are you fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
And how the Jack and Geos can come to town a couple of years ago and stand up and talk about, have a conference about black males and how black males are failing their families and what have you, okay? These are women of prestige and what have you who have worked long and hard and retired from the government, retired from education. Their husbands have gone on, possibly they're of that age, so they have his insurance money. So they got all this money, okay?
Mm.
But none of it is being invested into the black community.
Mm.
So the people who are rehabbing, regentification, white people coming into the core, the urban core, buying up all these old houses, etc., rehabbing them, or putting up new structures, pushing the blacks out. Okay? Now, that's a part of the tragedy, but the real tragedy is that blacks are not making those kinds of investments in self.
Mm.
And we have no models for black folk in really making significant models, investments, no models for black people making significant investment in self, other than the Nation of Islam.
Mm.
Okay? And the Nation of Islam, Mr. Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, never gained the support of the truly the masses of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come together. Let's build our own institutions, our own hospitals, our own schools. Why doesn't it happen?
Wow.
We have athletes who have what? The one, how much money was he making? The one that pulled out the gun in the locker room?
Oh, Gilbert Arenas. Many millions.
Huh?
Many millions.
Yeah. Who had nothing better to do with their money than gamble it away.
Mm.
You know?
Wow.
Charles Barkley that lose gamble away. The Michael Jordans that gamble away money. Do not invest it. I don't think, they're probably the contracts that they signed said that they never could invest in a losing cause called the black community.
Wow.
So there is no investment in self. Okay? So we do not create entrepreneurship. We send our kids to schools with the idea of getting a job, getting an education so they can get a job. And only a handful of us are sending our kids to school, our grandkids to school, to become entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Okay? There was a gentleman that called into a program, and he said we didn't want to go back to segregation.
Mm.
I'm not talking about going back to segregation. So I said, well, why don't you tell that to the Chinese? Or why don't you try that tell that to the Mormons? Or these other groups that create their own institutions, their own culture, their own societies, within the greater society called America. Okay? But we remain dependent. And we really do not believe that it has much value if white people are not involved in it.
Whoa. Can you repeat that? I feel that was real important. Can you repeat what you just said?
We don't believe it has much value if white people are not involved in it.
Wow.
Okay?
Why is that?
We had a black hospital here in this city at one time, many years ago, that it wasn't so much that black patients didn't want to go to the black hospital. It was that the doctors wanted to be on staff at the white hospitals.
Wow. Wow.
That is a state of mental illness.
Wow.
That's deep. That's a state of mental illness, and that's a black person who is suffering from white supremacy disorder. And that's what I call it, white supremacy disorder.
Again, our guest for today's program, clinical psychologist and author, Dr. Harry Davidson. I have a sheet full of questions, but I do want to check because folks called in, and we even got people in Missouri that didn't know that you were also in Missouri who were all excited and everything because they're in the same area. Somebody called it at 310. 310. If you have a question you'd like to ask Dr. Davidson, you're live. Go right ahead. 310. Are you just? If you're just listening, that's fine. 310. Did you have a question, or are you just listening? Okay, I think she's just listening. 310. If you do have a question, you can just press 1, and I'll see your hand. I can get you on so you can ask your question. In your book, Dr. Davidson, Somebody's Trying to Kill You: The Psychodynamics of White Racism and Black Pathology, you talk about the influence that media has in terms of how racism, white supremacy is able to control the things that you see, the information that comes to non-white people, black people, and you specifically focus on films. And I found, and I have long felt that this is an extraordinary tool for educating about racism, white supremacy, because a lot of non-white people I know, they would much rather watch a movie than read a book. Fine, no problem. I can work with the laziness. We can just pick out the racism in the movies, no problem. You did some just brilliant analysis of certain films. I just wanted to share some of that with our listeners. Hopefully they'll go get the book so they can see them all. But you talked about King Kong and said that was look, I don't even want to set it up. Can you share what you wrote about the film King Kong?
That King Kong really represented black people, and that, coming out of Africa or wherever it was, whatever jungle King Kong came out of. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Represented black people coming here in the holes of ships, in bondage, chained, that he breaks it loose, and he climbs to the height of the Empire State Building. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Meaning
that he was achieving and moving higher, and but he's always captivated by the blue-eyed, blonde-haired blonde. That is his demise. How many times you see that happening? Didn't that happen recently?
Tiger Woods.
Fighting for the tiger.
Wow.
Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
That was really symbolic of black people. That as a kid, I grew up pulling for Terrorism. I wasn't cheering for the Africans, for the natives.
Wow.
I was cheering for Terrorism. And he would run to the edge of the cliff and get behind a boulder, and all the Africans would run over the cliff to their death. That he was the king of the jungle. He conquered the jungle, the animals, the people, and everybody. Okay? That John Wayne started. These are all, probably a lot of people in the audience don't even know what I'm talking about. you see it being played over and over. In many of the movies today, even you'll see that the hero is white, and his side trick is like the Lone Ranger and Tonto we grew up with, or I grew up with. That the sidekick is black, but the real hero is white. Okay, and just the way that we are portrayed in the media, and the fact that those portrayals go all around the world, because that's the image that the whole world has of us. You know.
Wow.
Buffoons as clowns. You know.
Wow.
And nothing of a positive nature. Even the use of now the image of the President of the United States being a target of ridicule in the press and in the media, etc. There was a movie that I saw just the other night, and I can't remember it right now. It might come back to me. But the movie Avatar, for example, if you go to that movie, because that is saying a lot about who's primitive, who's savage, who's drawing the ecology. Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
That's a very heavy movie, but you got to know what you're looking. Sometimes you go to these movies and you don't know what you're looking at. Huh?
Wow.
Because of the symbolism.
Wow. I definitely, I wholeheartedly agree. I know, even myself, before I was a little more informed about racism, white supremacy, I remember sitting through some of these films, even some of the films that you talked about, Predator and other films, and not seeing any racism at all. Yes, please, can you share about Predator? Because I know some people have seen that one.
Predator.
Yes, sir.
Is that the one where the monster has the dreadlocks?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's an alien of some sort.
Right. Oh, have you ever noticed how Star Trek or any of the futuristic movies, so white supremacy goes on into the future. People are always white people.
Right, right.
Now you tell me who those monsters are. Who are the monsters? Who are those lizards and funny-looking people and what have you that have this high technology, but they look like beasts and they look like monsters and what have you. But white people are always clearly white people, even projected into the future.
Wow.
There was a movie, it's a movie out now. Oh, boy. Oh, I know. Well, did you have another question while I think about this one?
Either or. I can. If you want to go ahead and give it to us now, we can do that. Or if you want to think for a second, I can ask another question.
Eli, the book of Eli.
Okay. Oh, I haven't seen. That's with Denzel Washington. I haven't seen that.
Yes. Right. Yes. You know, I'll just let people go and check.
Can you give us one thing to look for? Can we get one thing to look for those of us who haven't seen it yet? Just one thing we should pay attention to in the book of Eli.
Well, we were talking earlier about the impact that Christianity has had on us.
Yes, sir.
And so here we have this black man, you know, who is carrying the word. You know, the world has been destroyed, but he is the savior of the word. He's the carrier of the word. His life mission is to carry the book, meaning the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Are you following?
Yes, sir.
to this place where it can be transposed and what have you, and so the future generations will have that as their reference. But the villain in the book says that he's trying to capture the book. He's trying to get the book because he needs the book to control the people. I need that book to control the people, he says.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Is the villain a white person or a non-white person?
Now, I will give them credit because in the end, when they show in the library of the books that they're collecting, they also happen to have a Quran, and they happen to have a Torah, and a few other religious kind of books, but the Bible being central, and the fact that the association is this book's importance is this book will either be controlled for good or controlled for evil. Hello?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Wow. Wow. I see. I haven't seen that one, so I got to see that one so I can offer a little more feedback. But I haven't seen that.
Yes.
Wow. I definitely want to make sure I get before I move to some other aspects. I want to make sure I get your breakdown of what happened around the Martin Luther King holiday and the release of Mississippi Burning, and I'm going to get you a sucker. But I want to. Some people did call and put a hand up, so. 310. I see you do have a hand up now. 310. If you have a question, you are live. Okay. 310. Are you with us? 310.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what had happened there. Anyway, Dr. Davidson, honored to get to speak with you. I wanted to find out what you thought, or if you heard Chris Matthews' comments the other day that that he forgot that Obama was black, and just wanted to get some comments on that.
What do I have to say about that?
Yes, sir.
Well, let me just say, you don't know how many times white people have told me that they don't associate me with black folk. Dr. Davidson, you're not like the rest of them. Are you fine? Right. You're educated. So it was that kind of remark. It was supposed to be a compliment. I told you that is, see you as being black and that's supposed to be a compliment. Right. How you gonna make it a compliment?
Right. Do you still, would you be in agreement that comments like that perpetuate racism, white supremacy?
Comments? No. I would. Yes, I would be in agreement with that. But I'm telling you, racism and white supremacy permeates and dominates and controls everything. You look around you and you show me something that is not predicated on white supremacy domination. Are you fine? Whether it's the media, the banking industry, or whatever of significance is there is dominated and controlled by white supremacy. Even the negative things. You know, the Uzis that come into the community. We know that black people don't manufacture them. You know, or the drugs. We know that they're coming from another source. Huh?
Right, absolutely.
The food that we're dependent on, the water that we're dependent on, everything is controlled and dominated by white supremacy.
Yeah. I
would refer you to the, I recognize.
Hello?
Uh-oh. Is everybody still with us? Dr. Davidson, you still with us?
I'm still with you. Maybe they got you again. Uh-oh. Hopefully not. Gus, you still there? Well, I think I'm going to call back.
Greetings. Sorry about that. We got
we
disconnected. I suspect it could have been interference.
I think
we'll be coming.
I think so.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You know, this every time I've ever attempted to call either your show or Cree's show, interference has occurred, interestingly enough.
Not a surprise. Yeah, I apologize. Hang tight. I'm going to get Dr. Davidson right back so you can finish your question because I felt that was important. I'm going to play a commercial just so we don't have dead air, but I'm going to call him right back, and you can finish up your question, 310. Thank you for being patient with us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce a code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's count.
Okay, we got Dr. Davidson back. I was just telling him that this has happened consistently on the program where we've had interference. The last time Dr. Welsing was on the program, we had, I think, at least 3 dropped calls, and they were all at critical points in the program. And he said he already understood. So we have him back. 310, if you're still there. Dr. Davidson's back with us, so you can finish up your question, sir.
Great. I am here.
Okay.
I had one other question I wanted to ask. As far as African Americans and other people of color, taking care of ourselves from a psychological standpoint, what are 3 of the most important and practical things that we can do to help ourselves from a psychological standpoint with dealing with and combating racism, white supremacy?
Well, I think that the first and most important thing is that we begin to educate ourselves by reading as much as we can the works of black people who are making contributions, who understand the dynamics involved. Dr. Frances Gus Welsing, I highly respect her work. There's Dr. Ashante Kamwambina Ashante, Psychotechnology of Brainwashing. There are a host of books that one needs to familiarize oneself with. And then we pass that knowledge on to others. The other thing is that we begin to recognize white supremacy where it exists. And that we not be so, we are a truly good people. We are a God-like people, okay? And so we tend to be more concerned about hurting white people's feelings than we are what happens to us and our future generation. And so our primary goal, certainly we should desire to get along with white people. And I'm not advocating any militancy that we not get along with white people, but we have to know, put ourselves first. We have to support ourselves. We should be supporting the Haitians. We should be reuniting globally Africans throughout the diaspora. We should recognize that we are all one, okay, and that it was the European that who divided us and now sets us against one another. But we have to do two things. First of all, we have to support those black businesses that still are surviving. But we have to, the third most important thing, I think, is the striving for entrepreneurship and developing an economic base. We have to develop an economic base. None of the things that we desire are going to happen until we truly have an economic base. We can't expect black men to be responsible for their families if they have no jobs. There was a day back in the 40s and 50s and what have you, they called them street corner men. I can't remember the author of the book. There was a sociologist, I think, that talked about black men who left their homes early in the morning and huddled around a barrel. They had a fire in a barrel, and they would stay there all day, and they would drink and keep warm. They didn't have jobs. They couldn't find jobs. The system was supporting the woman as long as there was no black man in the home, so they couldn't go home. They would leave early in the morning, and they would return late at night to protect their families. That got to be somehow confused with our culture of black men being dependent on black women. Okay, that was kind of fostered in. But those kinds of things. But basically, we have to, if we are going to be significant under capitalism in America, okay, we are going to have to produce some capital. It's that simple.
Fair enough, fair enough. And
I think that was three.
Oh yeah, yep. I don't mean to be a hog, but I want to ask you just one more question in relation to something that you had mentioned earlier on the program, because I didn't quite hear it completely, and I want to make sure that I heard it correctly. And it kind of relates to this. It kind of relates to you talking about us needing to, become more entrepreneurial and build an economic base. Did you earlier say that Michael Jordan, in his contracts, eliminated, or I guess made it so that he could not invest in the African American?
No, I definitely did not say that. I don't know anything about the rest of the contract.
Okay, good.
I said I was being humorous, and I said I think that the way many of our entertainers and athletes act, it's almost as if they have a clause in their contract that says that they can't make major contributions to the black community. Are you following?
I follow you.
That if we're going to buy those shoes that Michael Jordan is pushing, then why can't we be the ones that manufacture those shoes? If we're going to drive BMWs or whatever car you might choose, why can't we be the ones who manufacture those cars? Why can't we build homes? Why can't we, in this city, I push people and I tell people, go out and buy out vacant lots in your community and plant food. I mean, you can do that. Plant food. And you plant vegetables and those kinds of things. Then you're cutting down on the cost of your food because you are providing at a cheaper rate. You can feed the community. Are you following?
I follow.
There's just any number of things that we can do. If it weren't for the fact that our brains, that we've been brainwashed into a state of powerlessness and hopelessness, and we refuse to somehow do anything to alleviate that.
Thank you.
Hang tight, 301. Somebody else called in at 916. 916, if you have a question for Dr. Davidson, you are live on the air with us. Go right ahead with your question, sir.
Greetings, Gus.
Greetings. Oh, this Mr. Nero?
Yes, it is, sir.
Oh, okay. Right on. Go right ahead, sir. Mike, thank you for calling in.
Oh, no problem. Sir, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your day to come on the cows and share information with us. I didn't catch all of the show. I just called in not long ago, but I noticed you guys were speaking on racism and white supremacy in media. and I was wondering if you had noticed it in certain commercials that are airing today.
Oh, yes. Yes, go ahead.
One that comes to mind is the commercial that I noticed not too long ago called AutoTrader.com, where it's maybe a 50-foot white male walking around the city. And when he reaches his hands in to grab one of the vehicles, there's a black couple standing there. And the black male just bolts and leaves that sister standing there, to defend herself, because she doesn't know what this hand is going to do. I don't know if you've seen that commercial.
I haven't seen that one, no.
You haven't seen? Oh, yeah, that's a very interesting one, because that black couple, they run. Everyone else just kind of looks at him. All of the whites just, white people just look at him. They're not afraid of him. But the black couple, they both run. But the black male leaves that sister there to defend, defend for herself. I said, wow, that's blatant racism as far as I was concerned. And then the other thing I had noticed is in motion pictures, right before a movie starts, I think it's the logo for Columbia Pictures, the one that has what looks like maybe the Statue of Liberty, and then there's clouds in the back. I think it's either Columbia Pictures. It's one of the movie studios. But anyway, when that logo comes on and it goes back to the clouds, if you pause the tape and look at the clouds in the back, the cloud right behind that white female appears to be the face of a white male. And then when you look to the right of the screen, there's another face in the clouds that appears to be a black male, but he is in the position of being laying down, so to speak, to look up to that white male.
Yes. Right.
I wondered if you had noticed that particular logo.
I haven't noticed that particular one, but there's a thing called psychoneurolinguistic programming that is even deeper than hypnosis. And so people who are, and I've been in training sessions where there were any number of white folk, and I might be the only black person there, but there is this technology called psychoneurolinguistic programming. You'd be surprised of the kinds of things that they can instill into our minds without our being aware of it. And they call them subliminals. But this science goes even deeper than the subliminals. Okay, there's one that has to do with white boys sitting around a sports bar, and they're watching a basketball game, and they holler out at the bartender that they want to see more of the game. Okay, and they're not ready to leave, so they want to see more of the game. So if the bartender pushes a button, which then interferes with the game that the blacks are dominating, delays the game. Are you following? So that even though the white boys who are probably the geeks, who don't have the athletic ability and what have you, they do have the geek equipment where they can control even those areas where supposedly black people are dominating. Okay?
Wow.
Does that make any sense to you?
I saw that commercial. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's why we got him on the show, Dr. Harry Davidson. I want to make sure, Mr. Nero, if you have another question, because indirectly, he is the person most responsible for me making an effort to get you on the program, because I found out about your work in Dr. Robert L. Williams' book, and Mr. Nero made me aware of that book. So indirectly, he would be most responsible. So if you have another one, Mr. Nero, go right ahead.
No, not at this time. I will just continue to listen. If you could keep me on just in case, I would appreciate it.
Oh, gotcha. Will do. Definitely, I want to get back to get, I guess, two more of the films, and then I had some other questions. In Somebody's Trying to Kill You, I thought this was just fascinating. You talked about the release of, I believe it was Mississippi Burning, and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, released around the Martin Luther King holiday. Can you talk about the significance of the timing of those films when they were released and the actual content of the films?
Well, I wrote that some time ago, but so I can't speak to the specifics of it. It was just that it was Martin Luther King's birthday, and these other things that were intruding into the minds of black people and white people that were kept deceptively taking our minds away from that which should have been important to us, and was engaging us in some trivia, something that did not really represent us as a people, and that happens very often. For a while, I was keeping up with the kind of things that were happening simultaneously with Martin Luther King celebrations, etc. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would urge people to get a copy of my book. Can I do that?
Yes, please.
God Save America, an Assault on Democracy, Reason, and Religion. That's Kansas City, Missouri, Post Office, Box 11783, P.O. Box 11783, Kansas City, Missouri 64138. My book and the other book, Somebody's Trying to Kill You, Psychodynamics of White Racism and Black Pathology. I'm redoing The Ultimate Conspiracy, and the other books all can be obtained simply by contacting me at that post office box. My website hasn't gone up yet, but the books are available.
Okay. I
would also I'd like to put in a plug for my friend and colleague, Dr. Ashante, who's in North Carolina, who has a book called The Psychotechnology of Brainwashing. And I don't know if you want me to. His books can be gotten through Tone Books, 5119 Lansdowne Drive, Durham, North Carolina, 27712. Durham, North Carolina, 5119 Lansdowne Drive, Tone Books. Okay. And I would urge you, sir, to probably have him on the show.
I've already got it written down. I'm going to contact you once we go off to see if you can assist me in getting in touch with him, because I would love to.
I can do that. He also has a book having to do with voodoo, root work. Root work and voodoo, that goes into the history of what is voodoo, what are the origins of voodoo, what is the significance of voodoo, what are the medicinal herbs and what have you that are commonly used that go back to the root work, okay, that we accuse the Haitians and other African people of somehow we demonize that, okay. Dr. Africa's books, African Holistic Health, okay. We need to put that on our reading list. There's just a host of work out there that we need to be aware of. And last but not least, if possible, if you have the need for a psychologist or therapist, try to find one who's black. and that might sound racist, but I'm telling you that you don't necessarily want somebody who doesn't have your best interest helping you to figure out your life affairs, okay, your relationships, how to raise your children. We get very confused like that when we don't actually look for black authority, you know. And so you can always call the National Association of Black Psychologists in Washington, D.C. I don't have that number available to me. You can go on the Internet and pull up the Association of Black Psychologists and look for a therapist or psychologist that's in your area, you know, that you might prove more beneficial than just any old body. Mm. You don't want any old body in your head like that.
And I apologize for laughing because that's, I think, was excellent information. I could not agree more. I apologize for laughing because I feel that was very funny.
Oh, I'm laughing myself.
Some other people called in, so I want to get time to their calls too, but I have an important question I want to ask you. I want to actually, this is a clip from an earlier program with a non-white guest who was on the show. I want to play this clip since you are a clinical psychologist, just to get your view on what's said in this clip. But it is about sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people under conditions dominated by the system of white supremacy.
Yes.
This is a non-white guest, excuse me, who is in a sexual relationship with an admitted racist. I'll play the clip, and then I'm just real eager to hear your thoughts on what's said. Let me pull it up. Okay. All righty, here we go.
Are you a white person?
No, I'm not white.
Oops, incorrect clip. Here we go. Correct clip.
And it may be, and I'm not unwilling to critically look at this. It may be just a personal desire on my part to find a kind of soothing lotion so it doesn't feel so painful what it is that you're saying. So I'm not unwilling to look at that.
The soothing lotion he was referencing was being in a sexual relationship with a white person, that he was not unwilling to look at the fact that that might be a soothing lotion so racism doesn't feel so painful. Could you just share your thoughts as a clinical psychologist on what was just said and sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people under the system of white supremacy?
Okay. I would rather approach it from another angle, and that angle has to do with what is referred to as the Willie Lynch, what do they call it?
Willie Lynch syndrome?
Syndrome. Mm. Okay. We need, as black people and couples in our relationship, need to understand that a strategy has been put in place to divide us, deliberately divide the black man from the black woman, the old from the young. Are you following? That these things don't happen by accident. Mm. That other people have devised a strategy to divide us. But we, black men blame black women blame black men, but few of us look at a system that has been in place that basically is alien and anti-black male. Okay, so we go to prison at a higher rate, or we don't have jobs, etc. And that's where we need to focus. Frankly, I don't care that much about individuals' choice and preference in terms of who they're having sex with or who they marry or who they love. Are you fine? I think what we need to do is concentrate more on how we pull the race, those of us who see ourselves as being black and operate under some principles that allow us to characterize ourselves as being black. We need to understand what other people are doing to us and how other people are destroying our relationships intentionally. Are you following? How our kids are being institutionalized intentionally. Okay. And it goes on and on and on. Therefore, to me, it's this whole system of white supremacy that's the culprit, more so than racial relations or racial preferences or any of that. How do we as a people reunite ourselves, come back together, come back to sanity and function, and particularly function for the benefit of the up-and-coming generations? Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
We simply have to almost start from scratch, and that might be far-fetched. That might not be far-fetched, because the way things are looking, we probably all have to start from scratch. Just try and do it right. We need to do it right, okay? And not, we don't have to be segregationists to recognize that we lost a great deal in Kansas City. We had we had a whole area of black businesses, similar to what do you call it, Wall Street, Oklahoma Wall Street, or however you say that.
Yes, sir.
You know, that we had that, and most cities had black businesses, black professionals, and although and that could have grown and be thriving now had we not had a preference for running off and patronizing white businesses rather than patronizing our own businesses, priding ourselves in the fact that we were joining white churches or joining white social groups or assimilating into a white supremacy-dominated culture. We desired that more than we desired our own salvation. Are you following? Many of us, and I live in the suburbs, okay? But my consciousness is black. is black, and I service primarily a black population. Okay, but many of us saw moving into the suburbs as going to heaven.
Wow.
The equivalent of going to heaven. Therefore, the areas that used to be inhabited by black people deteriorate. The businesses deteriorate and close and fold and what have you. I don't know if they have black bookstores. They have black bookstores where you guys are. All the ones around here have closed. Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
But we just we have not sustained ourselves as a race of people. We have lost pride in that, you know. Many of my articles are published in the Final Call newspaper, okay, which is the paper of the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Brothers stand out on the corner in the cold and what have you, selling that paper. There's a wealth of information and knowledge in every issue that is published, and well written, well thought out. But we won't patronize that. Are you fine?
Yes, sir.
We would laugh at a brother selling a bean pie. You know, but we will go to the store and buy donuts and Hostess cut pieces, they still make them, produced by white folk. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so even when a brother is attempting to learn to be a salesperson, because if you're selling a Final Call newspaper, if you can sell a Final Call newspaper, you can sell a house, sell a car. See? It's a developmental process, you know. But if you're not going to buy a newspaper from that brother, then you're probably not going to buy a car from him either, are you?
Wow. Wow. Dr. Harry Davidson, clinical psychologist and author. I wanted to double check. I wanted to make sure I get the other person who called in. Your number is showing up as 111. If you called in at 111 and you had a question, you're on the air.
Hello, Gus?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
How you doing? How you doing, Dr. Harry?
I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
I had a question about, I had an important question, but I had a kind of first question, if I may. Have you ever been, you're a little older, I think, than I am. Have you ever been called nigger just out of the blue as you was like walking down the street or handling your business?
Have I ever?
Yeah, yes.
Well, it might help you to understand I'm 71 years old.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I've been called. I've been called nigger. I've been called. Yes, that has happened. Okay, as a matter of fact.
Oh, sorry. What about you, Gus?
I am considerably younger than 71. One time I have had someone just yell that out of the blue. One time, yes.
Now that happened to me yesterday. Not for the first time. It's like the 5th time that has happened to me. First time I was a young man in like junior high, just minding my business, me and my friends, everything was cool, and all of a sudden I just hear niggers. That was the first time, and I just wonder. And yesterday I was called nigger, just walking to the store, minding my business, and I was called little nigger. Now I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, and what is that? What do you think that is, Doctor? I mean, the person that yelled it out, it was white, Caucasian. I could see him, and I didn't react to it in any way because it didn't mean anything. He was to me really, but because it happened before, I guess I don't know, had in my mind it just doesn't mean anything. But he was driving past, and he was looking at me. He was looking back at me to see how I'll react, and I really didn't react, and he seemed a little shocked by that. But like I said, what do you think that is?
Okay, I think two things. I think early on, when I was not necessarily feeling that good about myself, then I would react to white people saying derogatory things to me about me. Now, when I see and hear white people doing that, it tells me something about them and their fears,
right,
and their anger. Are you following?
Yes.
And their sense of powerlessness. Huh? White people are at a point where they feel like they are losing. And I'm talking about the masses of whites. The little man. He's the one that's going to call you the nigger. He feels betrayed because he was told that he was superior. Okay? He was told that he was superior in every way. Now, all the athletes are black. If a black man takes his son to a basketball game, then they're cheering for black players. the president is black. You see black people on television, Congress people and what have you, intelligent people. And so think about that white person's psyche, how inadequate white people are starting to feel. And think about how angry they are that they sense that they're losing power. Losing a power that they've never really had anyway. And I will go back to the first, one of the first remarks that I made, is they're not understanding their powerlessness, the fact that they were the first slaves in America, and they were slaves in Europe. They never had any power, but they've always had a perception. They've always felt like they had power. So now, the only power that he has is to call you a nigger. Okay, shout that out at you and try to get you to react. But he's saying more about himself than he's saying about you. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just found it interesting. Little, he called me little, and I was pretty sure I'm bigger than he was. He looked kind of small, and I guess I was supposed to say, "Hey, stop the car! You got I guess that's he could keep driving off and laugh or whatever, but his look on his. I'm sorry.
But he was really talking about his sense of inadequacy. He was talking about the fact that he didn't feel good about himself.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I have a more serious question, if I may, Gus.
Yes, sir. Yeah, if you can ask it quickly, please.
Okay. I've been hearing about black men going into psychiatrist offices, and I guess the men in white coming from behind the door, and the doctors basically admitting them into a psych ward. Have you heard of these kind of cases where black men go to get psychiatric help, and all of a sudden the doctor is basically kidnapping them and putting them in psych wards?
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Sorry, but I'm sorry to say it like that, but yeah, I'm talking to you.
That wouldn't surprise me if it was happening. Man, I used to live under this false notion that being intelligent would somehow make a white person immune to being a white supremacist or a racist. Okay? And so I know for a fact that a white psychiatrist or a white psychologist can be a racist. Are you following? And I know for a fact that if you are a big man or a big woman, that they're intimidated by that. Are you following? So it would follow that they would want some kind of protection, etc. What other motives they might have for moving on us, okay, also wouldn't surprise me. That, for example, black people have notoriously been over-medicated by the mental health industry, by the pharmaceutical industry, okay? Therefore, you need to read some of the works of Dr. African Holistic Health. They over-medicate us, and they misdiagnose us. They see us as being schizophrenic, paranoid, delusional, a host of labels that they're going to put on us and behave in accordance with how they perceive us. So no, I'm not surprised by that at all. You know.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, and I think I can go on record as saying what I'm about to say, because it was I had some documentation that was placed into my hands at one time that I think was fairly authentic and valid. Understand that following the war, a lot of the scientists, so-called scientists, a lot of people in the field of mental health, psychiatrists, etc., that worked for Nazi Germany were brought into the United States and continue to experiment with black people and people of color here in the United States. Okay? That's an important thing to recognize. It used to be a time when black people would tell you that they were hearing, they had a radio in their head. They were picking up frequencies, etc., radio stations. And then there was some information that leaked out that, in fact, that was happening in mental institutions, that they were actually experimenting and putting these electronic devices into the brains of patients, and most of those patients being predominantly black. Okay, so nothing that just like I said, I wouldn't be surprised at anything that's happening under white supremacy, and I certainly wouldn't exclude the white medical field or the white psychiatric field as being innocent or doing some terrible, harmful things to us as a people.
Wow. Someone else called. The number is also showing up as 111. If you called in recently, you have a question for Dr. Davidson. Your number showing up as 111. You are live. If you'd like to ask your question, go right ahead.
Hello.
I can hear you. Yes. Is that you? I can hear you.
Actually, this is 916 still.
Oh, okay.
I got another phone call and I had to click over.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that caused it.
The other person at 111, are you there? Okay, I'll check back. Someone else called in at 111. Lots of ones today. The other person at 111, you called in most recently. If you have a question for Dr. Davidson, you're on the air. Person that called in, I think you just called in. Do you have a question for Dr. Davidson? Okay, I assume that these people are listening. Anyone that called in, if you have a question, you can press 1 to put your hand up, and I'll know that you have a question, and I can put you on the air to see if you have a question. I'll double check with 301, and then I'll ask my question before we, unless I see a hand from anyone. Anyone, if you called and you have a question, press 1, and I can get you on the air. 301, did you have a question for Dr. Davidson? Just check. Excuse me, 310. Did you have a question for Dr. Davidson? 310.
Yeah, actually. I have a question for the doctor. If he has seen Avatar or not, I have a question for him, depending on if he has seen that movie.
Yes, I have seen it.
Okay. I was curious about, well, I was watching the film, and I thought it interesting that the two main white protagonists of the film eventually become non-white. Do you think that there could be anything there with the sort of kind of like a Francis Cress Welsing sort of idea that a lot of white people have an issue with their lack of color in terms of their skin, and that film might have been a sort of collective wish fulfillment for having color.
Yes, that was a part of what I saw. I saw that too. But in addition to that, I saw them become more spiritual and to begin to understand the destruction that white people had done to other people, okay? The movie could have really applied to any race of people, but it seemed to reference the American Indians and their destruction. But there was an acknowledgement of the amount of damage white people had done, which might also have something to do with the fact that they ended up forming an allegiance or becoming white people who became non-white people.
Mm.
Did that, any of that ring a bell for you?
Absolutely. Another question related to Avatar. Did you notice that the main character, the girl, I forget the name of the character, but the main character that is a woman, that during the scene where they become sort of intimate, her hair that were braids become sort of straight hair for a little while, for a segment. Any thoughts on that?
I missed that.
Okay, yeah. You missed that in terms of...
I missed that.
Oh, you missed that.
But let's go back to the fact that she was black.
Right.
Okay. and as a matter of fact, the actress that portrayed her was black.
Right, yes.
And so we're talking about the union between the white man and the black woman to create some kind of humanistic presence. So the essence becomes, when they come together, they become more true to what it means to be human. Are you following me?
I am. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And I was just commenting on, from a visual perspective, though, when the main character, who is a white man, but in this avatar, when he first has a sort of intimate relations with the main character, whom is, of color, that during that particular segment of the film, visually, her braids turn to straight hair.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on that specifically as well.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you see that happening in the real world? Do you see braids and kinky turning into straight hair in the real world?
I do see it happening in the real world.
How much money we putting into straight hair these days?
It happens in a lot of black beauty shops across the country. Absolutely. So I just thought that was a really interesting and perhaps actually saying something about that.
Yeah, it's amazing, where all these black women came up with this straight hair all of a sudden, and why it's considered to be more attractive than the kinky hair.
Wow.
Are you following? Now they're looking better. And they will tell you they're looking a lot better.
Wow.
Out of their natural state and out of their natural minds, they're feeling better about themselves.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Very. I think par for the course. under the System of White Supremacy. Could you please give the information on how we can get your work, Dr. Davidson, any of the books that you've published? Can you give that information one more time, please?
Yes, I can. They can write to me, and that's Dr. Harry R. Davidson, Ph.D., P.O. Box 11783, 11783, Kansas City, Missouri, 64138.
Outstanding. I hope people will get in touch with Dr. Davidson. Somebody's trying to kill you. Fantastic. Somebody's trying to kill you. The psychodynamics of white racism and black pathology.
Let me tell you about the books that I write, which tend to be a blend of my thoughts, perceptions, etc., and the works of many other outstanding black psychologists, etc., around the country. I call it one-stop shopping. So the people who don't really enjoy doing a lot of reading can go to one place and get a wealth of information. Okay? And then if you choose, you can go to the bibliography and you can read the work of other people. But I try to put a lot of when I'm writing, I'm not just my ideas are not the only ideas that are going into my work. Okay.
If you think it would be constructive, because you seem to have a lot of respect for Dr. Ashante's work, if you think it would be constructive to give the information on how people can get his work as well, you can do so also.
Yes, Dr. Ashanti is at Tone Books, Tone Books, 5119 Lansdowne, Lansdowne Drive, that's Durham, North Carolina, 27712. His book, Psychotechnology of Brainwashing, African Passages. Okay, that's Dr. Ashanti. Also, he has other books. A book that people should be reading about now is Root Work, Voodoo and something to the effect of Voodoo and Root Work, okay, which has to do with, provides an understanding of what is Voodoo, where did Voodoo originate, what was Voodoo all about, what are the underlying philosophy, dynamics of Voodoo, the herbal usage, and the fact that a lot of health food stores and around the nation are selling the herbs and what have you that have African origins. And we don't recognize that, and we give far too much credit to the Chinese.
Wow. It has been a profound honor to have you on the program, Dr. Davidson. I think shared a lot of helpful information. Hopefully we can get you back on the program.
Well, you can. All you have to do is let me know when.
Okay, I'm gonna take you up on that because I had other stuff from Somebody's Trying to Kill You that I didn't have time for. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking some of your Friday morning to hang out with us, and I definitely want to have you back on the program sometime soon.
And if you want Dr. Ashante's number, I can give that to you.
I'm going to be in touch with you when I get off the air. I'm going to call you back. And
okay.
Yes, sir. I'm going to see if I can get that information.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch soon. And please be safe in the snowstorm out there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Take excellent care. context of white supremacy, Gus T Renegade, our guest, Dr. Harry Davidson, non-white person who seemed not so confused about racism, white supremacy. I think he had pretty solid information. I want to make a sound clip of that, him saying that non-white people don't want to be involved in something unless they're white people also going to be participating. I thought that was excellent. The folks that are on the line, I didn't get everybody because most people didn't have a hand up. I had a switchboard full of numbers and no hands. But I think I did get 310. I think I got Mr. Nero, and I might have got one other person. The folks that are on, just say something. If you call in, say something, and I'll be able to hear you.
Hello?
Yes, gotcha, Mr. Nero.
Okay.
310, are you still with us?
Oh, I'm still with you. I was just hanging on to listen, but Gus, love the show, love the guests as always, and it was good to be able to share constructive information, as you said.
Outstanding. I'm glad you all were able to call in for an early program. I guess if anyone, I don't know if anyone that's on the call now, if they were able to hear the program with Mr. Wise, because I definitely wanted to get feedback to hear if people thought that program was constructive, and if they think people with non-white people would hear that program and be more suspicious of Mr. Wise, or if they would hear that program and think, hey, Mr. Wise is great. I want to get his book, get an autograph. This guy's not racist at all. If you heard the program. If you didn't, don't worry about it. But if you all were able to hear it, I was curious to get your thoughts.
No, unfortunately, I couldn't call in. I tried, but...
This is Mr. JJ310. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance, but I'm going to listen to that, and I'll shoot you an email.
Oh, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. He will be back. I know Mr. Nero, he emailed and said he tried to phone in. I think he said the lines were full and it wouldn't allow.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, he's going to be back February 21st, Mr. Wise. We got that nailed down on the show yesterday. He'll be back February 21st, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on February 21st, which is a Sunday. So hopefully, Mr. Nero, you'll be able to call in 310 if you think it would be constructive. You can call in and ask questions to ask your questions of Mr. Wise. Very much looking forward to having him back on the broadcast. I guess, yeah, did anyone else have any other comments you wanted to make, racism-related comments that you wanted to share?
All right. This is Mr. Nero. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone? Hello? Hello?
Oh, I can hear you. I don't know. You all can take turns or fight it out. I don't care. I think it's only 310 and you. It might be one other person on the line. I'm not sure, but yeah, you all can.
Well, I was just curious, Gus, if you agreed with some of Dr. Harry's, I don't want to call them prescriptions, but I guess suggestions on some of the things that black people should do, as in, going into business and spending money with each other, things of this nature. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I would have to think about it a little more. I know some of the suggestions, he goes into more detail about them in his book, and they seem logical. I didn't see anything incorrect about them. I think the main thing, and he gets this in his book, and I think he said it on the program, the main thing is you would have to replace racism, white supremacy to correct a lot of these problems. The way that non-white people interact with each other, the way black people feel about each other and not wanting to support our business efforts or even buy a newspaper from a black person. A lot of these things, you would have to go about the business of replacing white supremacy with justice to correct a lot of these problems, and I think he understands that. I think he said that on the program, and I know he talks about that in his book in great detail. So yeah, I think as long as whatever we're doing, it is a part of the process of replacing white supremacy with justice. I think we're on the right path, and I think all of his suggestions are rooted in replacing white supremacy with justice. So, I would have to think about some of the dynamics of some of the specific things that he said individually, but I think as long as it's rooted in replace white supremacy with justice, that's the ultimate objective, not just to support black businesses or that sort of thing. I think we're fine. I would say the one thing, I don't think it would be possible to have so-called black institutions under a system of white supremacy. I think the system of white supremacy is designed to negate black communities or black institutions, black independence. The system of white supremacy is designed to negate all of that, and I'm pretty certain Dr. Davidson would have co-signed on that. That would be my view. I could be incorrect. And it's not, I don't think at least with me, it's not about agreeing with another non-white person. I don't waste too much time worrying about non-white people agreeing with me or not, because they are on the back of the bus too. So who cares if they agree with me or not? Just trying to get a problem. So that's my view. That's my view.
Interesting. And did you guys get a chance to talk on the relationship dynamics between black males and black females, as far as things that they can do to better get along with each other?
He writes about that a lot in his book, and I had notes to get at that. He touched on a little bit of it when I asked him about sexual relationships between white people and non-white people, about how the system is set up to create that conflict where black males are blaming black females and vice versa. He talks about that in detail in his book. If I can get him back on the program, I'll make sure we focus on that specifically. But he talks in his book about how black females and black males need to be honest about the fact that no one is causing them more trouble than the white people who practice racism. And being honest with each other about that will do a lot to make black relationships more helpful. And I think that's been repeated on the show now, which is great. Repetition is good.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. And then my last question for you, Gus, as well as 310, have the two of you either ever been in a, and I hope you don't consider this to be too personal, but have you ever been in a sexual relationship with a white person?
I have not.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I have. However, for the first 21 years of my life, I grew up in a community that was pretty much maybe 1% of the population or less was African American, and so that was a response to my environment.
So you have been? I
have in the past, yes.
In the past, okay. Well, can you please share with us, what's so great about the sweet white nectar?
Well, again, I was a young man, and I was responding to my environment. So I don't know if I'd be the best to give you that kind of perspective that you were looking for. It was just,
well, if you could just share your experience.
Well, my experience was, I didn't find that experience to be any different than experiences that I've had with African American women. But that was just my experience. So I don't know if it would be typical or atypical. That was just my experience.
Okay. I have experimented with a white female, several, and I have noticed some differences between white women and black women, to be exact. And so I certainly understand why a lot of black males, are attracted to white females, because they will use kindness and showering you with gifts and things of that nature, as well as support and cooperation, in order to lure you in. But it's been my observation that their bottom line is that they are only engaged in these relationships for sex, and they will marry you to get it. I have observed that they will still maintain the system of racism and white supremacy. I have observed them doing things like allowing their non-white children to play with white dolls and not have a problem with it. And it could even be a situation where a therapist or a counselor has given them these dolls in the form of tools to try to help deal with some of the behavioral problems that non-white children will be having. And so I've noticed them still practice racism and white supremacy, even though they say that they're in relationships with black males. And I noticed them practice it even though I was experimenting with it. So I always still stand behind the fact that black males have no idea what they're getting involved with when they are engaged in a sexual relationship with a white female. And so I take the code one step further now, and I say not only should a black male or black female not engage in these sexual relations, but you shouldn't even find yourself in a room alone with them.
Wow. Because
as a black male, what are you going to do if that white female decides to dial 911? She doesn't have to even say anything. All she has to do is dial that number and hang up. And when the police get there or enforcement officials arrive, she still doesn't have to say anything. All she has to do is cry. What are you going to do?
Wow.
You're just going to become further victimized. Right there. So I really want to touch on that before I hung up. If any black males doubt that, go try it.
Gus, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, before you hang up, sir, that's talking now, speaker?
Yes.
That was good information. That's why I participate in this show, and it gets hairy at times for me because it's new to be in this type of dialogue. But you just laid out some serious understanding of that, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can before I turn 30, because it seems like the more you in this system, and older you get, it seems like the more confused you are. So I know they used to say back in the 60s, they used to say, don't trust anybody over 30, because their heads wasn't right. So, man, if I would have knew that, what you just said, I would have been out of a lot of little troubles if I would have understood that when I was younger. Because I did a lot of traveling and stuff like that, and I was in friendships with white people and white girls, and it was pretty crazy. And they were definitely, but I was always militant. So like when I would bring up black problems and black issues and stuff like that, they wasn't trying to hear
it. Wow. I mean, I just want to drive it home that literally your life is in their balance. I mean, they can make a decision and really ruin your day. Just finding yourself alone with one in a room.
Have you ever been called nigger out of the blue?
Oh, absolutely. I can remember walking into my place of work, and a man was coming out of the building that I was going into, and the store was getting ready to open, and he was walking with a cane, so I figured I would open the door for him. So I opened the door for him so he could get out. He said, "Thank you, nigger."
Oh my goodness!
Wow,
that was his response.
Wow.
And I froze, I froze dead in my tracks, and my coworker who was with me said, "Come on, man, forget about it," and nudged me in the building because, my initial response was, I know he didn't just call me, you know what I mean? I know he didn't just call me that. And, I'm in shock. But my coworker just shoved me in the building and said, "Come on, let's just go to work. Forget about it."
What about you, 310?
Absolutely. I grew up in a predominantly white area, and I definitely have been called nigger on more than one occasion. The ironic thing about it is I probably have been called nigger by other minorities to probably 2 or 3 to 1 ratio, and I always thought that was interesting, and I think that is a response to racism, white supremacy. It keeps all the people of of color sort of at each other's throats, confused and divided.
Wow. That's a different dynamic right there, the people of color saying that to you.
Absolutely.
I think somebody should write a book about that, the different experience. I think if you ask black men across the country and have them give time and place, I've been called nigger on the freeway. White woman driving past just yelled out, "Niggers!" on the freeway. I've had some strange experiences with that, and I suspect, I never thought about it before until yesterday, and understanding this show and stuff like that, I thought I would ask, but I suspect maybe 90%. I don't know how. What you think? You think it's in high numbers, high percentage of black men that had that happen?
I would imagine every black man has been called nigger at least once in his life by a non-black person, and I would say that rate would definitely go up astronomically if you're living or spending a lot of time amongst non-black people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you there.
Oh, okay. One other person hopped on the line, non-white female. I wanted to make sure we got her perspective because she hopped in. I don't know if she wanted to comment on if she had been called a nigger or other aspects of the conversation, but she joined the line as well. Oh, I guess she doesn't want to say anything. Okay. Yeah, she did hop on the line, though.
Can we ask you a question, Gus?
Sure.
I've always been curious about Seattle, and I know that you are from up that way. And I think I've heard on a previous program that you have that you're not from there originally, though, and so I would want to ask you, Seattle, how has your experience in Seattle as a black man been compared to where you have previously come from? And have you ever been called a nigger in Seattle?
I believe the non-white female, I believe she is on the call now. Can you say something?
Hello?
Gotcha. Okay. No, I did not. I was not born in Seattle. I've been here for a couple years now. My experience in Seattle as a black male, I think, number one, if I had been born and lived here for the majority of my life, I most likely would not be doing this program. I think this is a very difficult area to be a black person because there are not that many black people, and the white people are very refined in the way that they practice racism here because there are not that many black people. You see a lot of sexual relationships between white people and non-white people, white people and Asian people, white people and black people. and there are not that many non-white people, so you don't have a lot of, the blatant types of incidents of racism. You have a lot of the, racism, that's so whack, and we're into being green and vegetarian and yay Obama. You have a lot more, I guess, of what some people would term the liberal white people, progressive white people, who acknowledge
Chris Matthews liberals.
Right. Even better than Chris Matthews. Like, the people here wouldn't have made a comment like that. People here would have got upset over a comment like that. So I feel like this environment, it's real easy to think that white people are not consciously racist. It's real easy to think that there are a lot of white people who don't want racism to be around anymore, who are trying to change things, who don't have a problem with non-white people. It would be real difficult for me to have any interest in this program if I had been born and raised here. I wouldn't listen to it. I wouldn't be on it. I'd be saying Gus is crazy. Dr. Welsing is crazy. I don't know what planet you all are from or what you've been through, but you're just making a lot of excuses and blaming white people for things. And matter of fact, me and my white wife are going to the movies to see Avatar, whatever. I pretty much think that's how I would be thinking, because just the environment, it's just very difficult. It's very difficult for a lot of reasons. But you would have such a big part of that is because you would have very easy access to sexual intercourse with white people as a black male. I don't know how it is for black females. I think some of that's here, but I mean, in terms of being a black male, you would have extremely easy access to sexual intercourse with a white person. And I think for Asian females, same thing. Extremely easy access, which contributes in a huge way to the confusion that non-white people have about racism, white supremacy. So that is one of my major observations of being in this area, and particularly living in this environment and not being from here, growing up in an environment where there were more overt examples of racism, white supremacy, to then coming to this sort of environment. So yeah, that's Gus's experience. Lauren, did you have a comment? Because I think we got you now, if you're there.
It's the guy who said something about the black males not being alone in the room with the white female. Does he feel the same about black females, well, not my females, period, being in the room along with a white male? White male.
I think that's even worse.
Can I hear why?
Because typically, physically, a woman cannot overpower a male. And I'm speaking on an experience that I had with a white woman that basically wanted to have sexual intercourse, and she reached out and grabbed me. And when she reached out and grabbed me, it dawned on me then just how vulnerable I was. I'm in a house with this woman, and I'm in her house, and she reached out and grabbed me, and I wasn't interested. And at that moment, I realized, wow, this can go sideways real quick for anybody in this position. Now, I managed to navigate out of that situation, but that's why I said, my code from that moment on was, you don't even put yourself in a room alone with, because you just don't know how that's going to go. And who are you going to call?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it doesn't go, who are you going to call?
What do you...
I've heard stories of black females calling the police on a white male that was abusing them in California, and the black female went to jail. Wow. That has happened.
To the
Once again, who are you going to call? I just want to know. Something happens, you feel like you've been violated. Who are you going to call? Not anyone that looks like you.
Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want to know. I just wanted know your comment on that. That's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a question for you as well. What is your thought on because it sounds like you're definitely very much against interracial relationships between people of color and non-color. What do you recommend to many of our brothers and sisters who now live in areas in which there are not a lot of African Americans around, and maybe no other minorities as well, people who are growing up in those areas and those environments where if they're going to have any type of relationship with, a human being, then it might very well, they may have the only option maybe with white people. And would you recommend they just stave off any sort of relations with white people, even in that context?
I believe they have options. That would be one, to abstain and work on self. That's never a bad option. It may not be what someone wants to do. And I acknowledge the fact that we are sexual creatures, that we all want to have and have a strong desire to have sex. I get that. The other option is to move, relocate, and of course the third option would be you can engage, but you are really putting yourself in an extremely vulnerable position to get mistreated. So it comes down to personal integrity. That's what it came down to for me. I mean, physically, I wanted to do it. When I was in that situation, physically, I wanted to engage in. But this is a political response. And I also knew that I was being mistreated. That she was trying to take advantage of a situation. She had me alone in a room, which was her aim. She was not concerned at all about the reason why I was there. The reason why I was there was about business, and I had needed her assistance. She wasn't really concerned about that. She was concerned about one thing and one thing only. And once again, like I said, if it goes sideways and you're not interested, what are you going to do if they decide to pick up that phone and call for help? You have no defense against that. I don't have all the answers. I'm just simply saying you are really putting yourself in a very vulnerable position just finding yourself alone in a room with a white person. All alone.
And Gus, I'd like to hear your comments on that as well. What do you recommend to people who are, they're growing up in areas where there are no African American men or women, where there's a lone African American person? Should they just, not have intimate relations with anyone?
Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I totally agree with Mr. Nero's observations. Not that we're looking for agreement. Want to definitely highlight that. Not looking for agreement amongst non-white people. That is not needed. But in this instance, I do agree with his comments. But I would just add that in addition to being in a very vulnerable position with regards to white people, that in my view, having sexual intercourse with white people, even if it doesn't go bad, even if you want to, they want to, no rape charges end up being filed as a result or anything, no golf clubs go flying, that it still ends up having an extraordinarily corrosive impact on the non-white person's ability to think honestly about racism, white supremacy. And I think that's been demonstrated on the program consistently. Just a few days ago, the Oreo experience, earlier with Dr. Eddie Moore Jr., it really impairs the non-white person's ability to just be honest with themselves about racism, white supremacy, and even being suspicious of that white person that you're in bed with. I've just seen that it's just not good. It really is counterproductive for non-white people. Even some of the people that Dr. Davidson mentioned, Frantz Fanon, he's writing about, wretched of the earth and how non-white people are despised and mistreated worldwide, but he married a white person. And that shows up in his work. If you read his work and if you know that information, it shows up in his work. So that would be my one comment that I would definitely want to add on. And in regards to being in an area where there are not a lot of non-white people, so your sexual options are reduced unless you're going to have sexual intercourse with white people. I think back of the bus, he has said consistently that animals, when they're under duress, when something is happening where they're being mistreated or the environment is not conducive to them being able to exist without being harmed or to exist freely, they stop procreating. They prioritize and know, hey, this is not just we're going to frolic and have sex and make babies or whatever. If we're in a tough position, we're going to do everything we can to get ourselves in a better position, and then we can get back to having fun doing the wild thing. I think non-white people really need to be much more disciplined with the way that we look at sex. Mr. Nero, excellent point. We are sexual creatures. The desire is there. But in a system of white supremacy, things really need to be reanalyzed, and the priorities really need to be shifted to understand, hey, yes, I'd like to have sex, but that might not be in my best interest, particularly if that's going to mean having sex with a white person. I think Dr. Welsing, someone was questioning her in a lecture, and they said, why don't we resort to violence? Why don't we, train ourselves, do combat training and attack white people? And she said, we can't even be disciplined about sex. Mm-hmm. If you're gonna engage in warfare, you got to be disciplined. And if we can't even be disciplined enough to say, well, I'm not gonna have sex with, undisciplined, reckless sexual intercourse with a lot of non-white people, or I'm at least not gonna have sexual intercourse with white people, if we can't even make a commitment to do that under conditions where AIDS and all other sorts of sexual transmitted diseases are rampant, if we can't even do that and be disciplined, how are we going to engage in warfare with white people who have shown they are the masters of warfare worldwide? So, I mean, hey, my view would be that really should not be that big of a concern. If you're in an area, there are not a lot of I am in an area where there are not a lot of non-white people. I'm still young enough to be sexually active. That's not my top priority. I see people that are cute on a regular basis, and I'm not running crazy. I'm thinking of who I'm getting on the show next. That's what my priority is. What am I going to be doing to work against racism? I understand that's not everyone's level of focus, but that would be my perspective under conditions dominated by white supremacy. And this is probably going to come up major on the show on Monday. I can plug. Non-white guest is coming on the show. She was adopted by white parents, and that's what she focuses her research on, non-white children who've been adopted by white parents, the impact that has on them. And she's going to be, I guess we're splitting the program because she's doing a lot of research on a lot of the black children in Haiti that are being snatched and adopted by white people as we speak. So that'll be Monday. So this will definitely come up. Should be interesting. Her name is Lisa Marie Rollins. That'll be Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. But that's my view. There are a lot of other people on the call. They can share their view on that.
Let me just add one last thing in regards to that. And I realize for black males specifically, and I won't speak to black females regarding this, but I realize for us, and I'm going back to my childhood, the first sexual image of woman that I can remember was a white female in the form of Playboy magazine, in the form of movies. So, I mean, that image is beaten into you early on that this is the most desirable creature on the planet, bar none. I mean, there's nothing that even comes close to her. So I realized, the propaganda that's been fed to us and the head job that they've done on us, to always want us, for the most part, fantasizing about them. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but this is something where I agree with not only with Gus, but Mr. Fuller and Dr. Welding as well. When you look at the results of just being in these relationships, I don't see how we have benefited at all collectively from the results. Like I said earlier, I have seen non-white children as a product of these relationships, for the most part, being trained to think that they are also white. I've seen it. Now I look around for the evidence that supports that these relationships are ending the system of racism and white supremacy. I don't see it. Now, if someone can correct me, please do. But I don't see it. I don't see the benefits. I don't see any so-called mixed children being passed down companies or bonds or land or anything that would improve their quality of life. Am I incorrect? Hello?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Am I incorrect?
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, you're not incorrect. I'm with you on that.
Okay.
Not only that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Just the white parents don't say anything about racism, and even when the child is just coming to them, confused, and they still practice racism, act like it doesn't exist. So, yeah. And then on top of that, when that child grows up and they in a relationship with a non-white person, they have kids with another non-white person. Them kids, they don't want to see, they're going to be confused too because they have a white grandparent, and my white grandparent is nice. So it's just a cycle that's going to continue of just confusion. So, yeah. Anywho.
Gus, did you ever read that email that was sent to you pertaining to the help?
I'm sorry? The email that was sent about help? Is that what you said, sir?
The email the girl sent you about the compensatory petition or whatever. He said he was going to read it on the Tim Wise show.
Oh, man, Katrina. Yeah, thank you. Katrina Brown, I got sidetracked yesterday with Mr. Wise. Katrina Brown, yes, she did contact me. Or she had her assistant contact me earlier this week, and she said she's cutting a check. I did not ask for the amount. When I get the check in my hands, I will announce the amount. But she said she's cutting a check. She wanted my information so they could send that out, and when I get it, I will let you know what the amount is. If it's enough for the MacBook Pro, I'll open the chat room, and you'll know I got my computer. If it's not enough for a MacBook Pro, I'll just announce what I got, and we'll continue on.
I think you should leave a back door for that chat room, because that chat room is some of the, that chat room it can get real silly in that chat room. So I think you should have an option of closing it, or maybe letting people know that if they're gonna be silly up in there, that you ain't gonna keep it open. I don't know how that would work, but that chat room is that chat room is dumb.
I thank you. This is 909, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I thank you you're the first caller to ring the show and share their view that they have seen a lot of non-constructive activity in the chat room. I hate the chat room. I've been very clear about that. And I understand, for everybody who acts wild in the chat room, I understand. When I didn't have my show, I used to go to chat. I got banned from a chat room. I wasn't cursing. I was just asking questions, and I got banned, so I understand. You can get excited, and people are saying things on the show that get you riled up and such, but, yeah, not getting into all that. Even if I get my MacBook Pro, if I see, the chat room is going sideways and not being constructive, I will shut it down again. But at least for a little while when I get my MacBook Pro, I'll leave it open because I'll feel like we're doing. I'll have evidence that the program is constructive because it's solving problems for non-white people, myself first and foremost, and improving quality of life. So I'll open the chat room and just say whatever. I have a very nice computer, and you can say whatever you want in the chat room. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Let me make one comment about the chat room, if I may. Gus, you've used the statement. I can't remember your exact words, but I've heard you say something like, "This is what devastation looks like," or what was the word you used?
Domination. This is what domination looks like.
Yeah. When you use that statement, just refer to the chat room.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Me, when you talk about the chat room, for me, it just reminds me of the domination.
Yeah, those people in the chat room, they're not interested in the show. They on some whole nother level. I've seen when Cree did her show. We were all in the chat room. I was in the chat room. Gus was in the chat room, and there were some other people in the chat room. We wasn't typing nothing. Then all of a sudden, one person that had the fast fingers, they were looking for people. So she was like, "Are you guys?" She was typing, "Is anybody there?" And none of us typed anything. Basically saying, "Just be quiet with the daggone typing and just listen to the show." But then here comes somebody with some more fingers, and they just went at it. It was just the two of them out of all the people that was, I'm talking about. Remember that, Gus? Did you know? I don't know if you noticed that how most of the people that were in there, we wasn't typing anything. We had no interest in typing anything. We just, you know what I mean? It seems like a certain person that loves to type, or they took some typing classes and they fast with their fingers, and they just love that chat room. They didn't get the hint that we wasn't trying to converse with them in the chat room. So anyway, I just said, you.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was going to say that you would be keeping your word, because you said if you did get it that you would open it up, but you didn't say for how long. So
I mean, it's my show at the end of the day. I mean, if I don't feel it's constructive, it'll be shut down again. But I will at least open it for a show or two if I get my MacBook. But I think some of that too is if you do a show and you open your chat room, they will put your show on the front page. They'll have a little box and it will say there are live chats with these shows. So your show will be listed there, which I guess is good because it's promotion, but it brings in a lot of people who are not necessarily codified or interested in learning about racism, white supremacy in a serious manner. It'll bring a lot of people who, they just want to argue or be silly or whatever. So,
hello?
Yeah, we got you. We can hear you.
I know it's like way off topic, but I'm on Facebook and someone just sent me this shirt, and it says "I slept with," then it has a tiger on the shirt. I just wanted to let y'all know that. I don't know if this shirt is for not, but I just want to let you know that.
The fall of Tiger Woods, so sad. So sad. Right around the sexual intercourse thing too. I hope people can begin to connect the dots with why I feel that it's so important, why it comes up on this show so much. I even before the program began, I wanted to focus on sex more than I do. Like I really wanted to ask every single person that came on the program if they've engaged in sexual intercourse between a white person and a non-white person, to really, really drill that. But Yeah, I mean, it's very important. I hope people can connect the dots with things that they're seeing in terms of films, Avatar, Tiger Woods. I hope people can begin to connect the dots with things that are happening, and we're going to work on this when Dr. Wilson comes on the program next month, and when Tim Wise comes on the show next month. And hopefully, Tim Wise said he's agreeable. We'll have them on a show together sometime soon, so we can hash things out and get an opinion on whether or not this is a non-constructive thing, and if more non-white people should really be looking at this seriously. If we're going to work against the system of white supremacy. I guess we're about to close in 10. I'll plug the show really quick, and then anybody, if you have anything else you want to get out before we wrap the program up. Again, next program is Monday, February 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Lisa Marie Rollins. She has a blog, The Birth Project. She has another blog as well. All this will be listed in the description for the program. But again, she is a non-white female. She was adopted by white parents, and she focuses her research on so-called transracial adoptions. She'll be talking about that. She'll also be talking about the hordes of white people that are scurrying to Haiti to snatch up black children out of the rubble to adopt them. That'll be Monday's program, February 1st, kicking off Negro History Month. Right on. Yeah, anybody? If you have anything, you have about 9 minutes. If you would like to get out any more views in the next 9 minutes, feel free to do so. I think Lauren's still with us, Mr. Nero, and 909. I think we might have lost 310, but you all, anything you would like to share?
I just want to touch on, this is Mr. Nero, I just want to touch on one of your earlier shows in November with Dr. Nancy Krieger.
Yes, sir.
I re-listened to that show because I had noticed that you referenced that show often. And I do remember hearing it the first time, and I remember Cree coming on at the end, and you know, I thought really asking some great questions at the end to expose her. But that Krieger, that Dr. Nancy Krieger, I tell you, she is one of the most sophisticated suspected races that I have ever heard speak. I mean, Gus, she slipped in on you, sir, unfortunately. I know you've been victimized, but she said that racism and white supremacy was a niche. We didn't catch that.
I'm sorry?
She
said it's a niche?
She said it was a niche on your show. But
are you saying niche?
That's what she claimed it was. A niche.
Okay. I would need to hear the whole sentence to really get. What did that mean to you when you heard that? What did that mean? Like, do you remember the context that you heard that?
And I think it's around the 38-minute mark. If you maybe go anywhere between the 20-minute and the 38-minute mark, you'll hear her. What she did was she hit everybody with, I think, the term interpersonal, and then I believe that was a setup punch because she knew a 10-year-old child is not going to know what empirical means and interpersonal means, and I mean that is the first guest. I actually pulled out a notebook and started writing down some of the things she had mentioned. Inequality, deprived, you know, she used the word discrimination, systems of oppression. I mean, she used a lot of big words to, you know, basically try to confuse justice. And you guys were all hip to that. But one of the things she slipped in was that racism is a niche in that whole oppression deal. And unfortunately, you know, I didn't catch it the first time. No one caught it the first time. No one called her on it. I say that as far as, you know, your past shows go, I mean, that show should be studied in great detail by everybody.
I guess the thing I would, again, and I think I've said this consistently, I've said she shared a lot of constructive information, and I will continue to say that. She shared a lot of constructive information.
Oh.
She also, I suspect, practiced racism, white supremacy. And I think I said that consistently when I have said she did share constructive information. And I think I would hope, at least by this point, I would hope people listening to the program, I always expect if it's a white person coming on the show, they're going to practice racism. I would hope that if one thing I hope we can accomplish with the show, if it's a white person, there should never be any expectation that this person is coming with a sincere interest in helping Negroes and replacing white supremacy with justice. I hope that has been eroded completely, because there is no white person that's ever been on this show that I think is really down to replace white supremacy with justice, work hard, get things done. If Katrina Brown cuts me a check for $500,000, I'll be saying the same thing about her. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I hope people don't confuse that or think that I'm saying Dr. Krieger is great. That's my pal. No. I think she's extraordinarily informed about white supremacy, and I think some of that info might have been missed, as well as some of the ways that she practiced racism that you brought up and some of the terms that she used. So, yeah, I would highly encourage listen to the program. I think Lauren Ashley, she said repeatedly, I don't think you can get all the information from listening to these shows one time. These are some you gotta really pay attention and listen to them more than once, some of them, to get the information. And I think Cree as well. I think really anything dealing with racism is not going to be a one-shot deal. You're really going to have to study and pay attention. Mr. Fuller, I listened to his lectures repeatedly. Dr. Welsing, it's not a one-shot thing. Dr. Marimba Adnis Yurugu, I've read it and reread it because the information is important, and it's just like a movie. You know, you see different things if you watch the film more than once. Other things will jump out to you. You'll get a better understanding of the film if you watch it more than once. So, yeah. Watch Cree's program, go back, listen to the archives, this program, listen to the archives, and pay attention to what Mr. Nero said, the words that Dr. Nancy Krieger used on the program. Really pay attention to that. Sorry for anyone else? Mr. Nero or anyone else?
Yeah, I have something to say. Gus.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Phil Coran, he's a very prestigious musician. And I heard him 2 days ago. He was in one of his talks. He was complaining about the fact that Elvis Presley played 13-bar blues on the Ed Sullivan Show. He said that blues is 12 bars, and it was a disrespect to play 13-bar blues because the people that created it was a disrespect to them. They created it. It was a soul thing. So I think when you reference Tim Wise as the Elvis Presley of anti-racist, that's what I thought of. He said that's the problem that the musicians and the people had with Elvis is that he played 13-bar blues, and blues is not 13 bars. It's 12 bars. So it's not that you're doing the music, but you're doing it with a you feel me? That's the point he made. And I said, man, Gus references Tim Wise as Elvis Presley. So I thought that was interesting.
I think Mr. Wise agreed with my metaphor in saying that Tim Wise is the Elvis Presley of counter-racism. So I suspect he understands a lot of the nuances of why that metaphor is very fitting, way beyond the fact that he also lives pretty close to Graceland. But I feel it's applicable in a lot of ways, even in the way that he gives his counter-racist message and changes things up so that it's not as accurate, not as constructive as it could be for victims of racism who hear him speak about white supremacy. I guess, before we wrap, anything else quickly? About to wrap up. We got, I think, 60 seconds. Anything else?
I'm suspicious of Tim Wise. I was already suspicious, but I think more so now. And thanks for the show, the opportunity.
Love to hear it.
Anything else? Anybody? About 40 seconds left.
Nope. No, I'm done. I think I'll go to Lauren Ashley's blog.